we'd like to give you a small taste of the interesting projects that we already have underway at the Center for Gender Analysis. I'd like to introduce some of our colleagues at the Just Jobs Network who will take the stage one by one in order that they are Raghav Chakravarti, Senior Research Associate, Prerna Seth and Kaushiki Sanyal, who are both fellows at the Just Jobs Network.
Good morning. My name is Raghav Chakravarti, and I work as a researcher at the Center for Gender Analysis. At the center, we have initiated research on three important fronts related to women's economic participation. And today, during this session, we will be making presentations on some of these themes and ongoing research and analysis that we've been working towards. To begin, I will make a brief presentation on an analytical framework that we have developed to assess the gender impact of policies and programs. Following this, there will be a presentation by Prerna Seth on a recent study in Karnataka on the Shakti scheme, which provides women fare free transit in public buses. Following this, Kaushiki Sanyal will provide a comparative account and a cross-country account of gender budgeting and gender impact assessment tools. So, coming to the framework on gender analysis. Now, the need for gender analysis has been well articulated in the context of policy making and policy implementation. However, this has been mostly specific and restricted to policies that have an exclusive and a sole focus on women. This includes programs or policies that are aimed at delivering specific welfare outputs and welfare services to women alone. However, framing this in a narrow manner, it precludes a comprehensive analysis of policies that are indeed producing very dissimilar outcomes for different sections of the society. For instance, consider industrial policy that seeks to spur growth in the manufacturing sector. And as an industrial policy tries to do that, it creates growth and it also creates employment. But it does so in industries which prefer hiring men, and the industries are generally male dominated. And when this happens, it produces and reproduces certain gendered outcomes such as segregation, occupational segregation, and gender wage gaps. Now, through our work on this framework, but also broadly at the Center for Gender Analysis, we want to highlight this central message that all policies create gender effects. And therefore, all policies require gender analysis. But what do we mean by gender effects? Now, gender effects, we define them as the production of dissimilar outcomes for different genders, while stemming from a common policy or a program. Now, there may be several causes for these effects. Some of them includes pre-existing unequal relationships in the society, biases, stereotypes, and norms that are prevalent. And as seen in the case of industrial policies, the policies tend to produce outcomes even when the policies did not envision to do so, even when there was no intention to do so. Invariably, some of these gender effects creep in. To avoid this or to mitigate this, we need integration of gendered perspectives in various stages of the policy making process. This includes right from policy conceptualization and design to operationalizing the policy and right up to evaluation as well. But what about those policies that are already implemented? And it's particularly hard to locate where and how gender effects are produced for such policies. This is often, this could be due to two reasons, and one reason is that we do not have enough data on gendered effects. And the other reason is that there's also often a lack of knowledge on how gendered effects are produced in the first place. It is to address this very specific knowledge gap that we have conceptualized a gender impact framework. And in the following slides, I will be presenting some key elements of this framework. And I will do so by applying it to an urban employment guarantee scheme that is being implemented, say, in Kerala. Increasingly, they're implemented in other states as well, but I will broadly refer to the program in Kerala. And but what are we really trying to do with this framework? Our objective behind this framework is threefold. The first objective is to delineate the policy process into various stages, right from policy input, policy design, to operationalizing the processes, and finally to evaluation. And this is important because we need to understand which stage of the policy process the gender effects are being produced. And the second objective is to identify indicators, indicator variables that reflect some of the core elements of the specified indicators themselves. And this would include, say, indicators that reflect government priorities, parameters related to the program implementation, and finally, key outcomes and outputs that the program produces on the larger society, but particularly on women. And we would then populate the framework with data, and this data would be both quantitative data derived from the secondary information available, both public data sets and the administrative program level data, but also qualitative data that we may want to collect for further analysis. And so coming to the framework, we've identified clearly demarcated, 5 clearly demarcated indicators. To begin with, we have the first input or policy indicators, and these indicators represent financial allocations, financial resources, human resources, legal instruments, and policy specifications that are crucial to the design of the policy. And typically, they reflect priority areas. And we choose this because gendered effects may arise because of, say, inadequate financial allocations, or if the policy design team has inadequate representation of women. So this is a key stage that contributes, or that is potentially contributing to gendered effects through policies. And the second indicator is the context indicator. And this is not directly related to the policy, but we believe that the characteristics of the geographic context, but also the socio-economic context, significantly influences how the policy itself delivers impact and shapes outcomes on the ground. So this could be socio-economic characteristics and also geospecific characteristics. The third is the process indicator, and this again is very important because it captures and quantifies some of the key decisions that are taken during the nitty-gritties of the policy implementation process. This is important because how functionaries, and this includes even the frontline functionaries in a Gram Panchayat or in Ward Sabhas, how they take decisions with respect to specific programmatic outputs, and that determines how outcomes are shaped. And a disaggregated view of some of these outputs will also allow us to see whether some of the interventions are gender responsive or they're not. Finally, the last two indicators, the output and the outcome indicators. The output indicators refer to tangible assets, services, products, and benefits that are delivered through programs. And the outcomes, they're achieved through the delivery of these very outputs. So again, a disaggregated view will allow us to see whether they are gender responsive or not. Outcomes, and these are indicators that have a broader impact in the society, but again, mainly women. And this would include variables like, say, labor force participation, which is the intended one, but there are also other unintended consequences that may be a resultant of some of these policies. Now, given these features, let us take a closer look at some of the indicators and variables. But before that, let's just quickly sum up, look at the key elements of the Employment Guarantee Program. Now, the Employment Guarantee Program seeks to provide livelihood security and it's modeled along the lines of Manreka. So it targets vulnerable workers from who are majorly employed in informal work, and it seeks to provide 100 days of guaranteed wage employment. And workers will be engaged in public works and constructing assets to strengthen urban infrastructure and regenerating ecologies. And given this, how does our framework actually look like? So we have, this is a snapshot of the framework, where on the left we have the process, which is the indicator, and we also have the indicator types, which is P1 and P2, and then we also have, following that, we have specific variables that will be included in each of these indicators. So to have a closer look, so let's consider an input indicator, and the input indicator code is say the financial resources allocated to the program. And the key variable that is important in determining outcomes is the average wage rate of the program. Now, one may say that the average wage rate is same for both women and men, but what it relates to the market wage rate, and that comparison would be important in determining who actually, say for example, the average wage rate by the program is less than the average market wage rate for men, then men would tend to select themselves out of the program, making the program mainly a work guarantee for women. So this is just an example of one aspect of how gendered effect would be produced, but also coming to a process indicator where, say, consider, for example, the P2 indicator type, which includes discrimination, segregation, bias, exclusion, inclusion. And here I would like to draw your attention to one, this variable of rationing. And this is something that we observe a lot in Manreka as well, where people who want to work are not getting work. They're rationed out of work sometimes. And this kind of rationing can occur due to various reasons. One of them is financial allocations, but also availability of capacities, and the ground also determines some of these things. Finally, an output indicator, and this would, an example of this indicator could be, say, the share of percentage that women get in a program compared to men. And a gap between this also indicates to us to what extent women are making use of the program, or to what extent the program is delivering specific welfare outputs to women. So, so as this brings us to, I mean, you can find a larger list of the indicators and the indicator variables on page 8, 9, and 10 of the report that we have released. And we'll be happy to receive any feedback, critique, and in taking this further, as this is a work in progress. And we hope that this framework will shape out to be a useful tool for researchers and policy analysts that they can use in their evaluations. So that brings us to the end of my presentation. Over to Prerna for an exciting presentation on the Shakti scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghav. Good morning, everybody. My name is Prerna Seth, and I'm a fellow at the Just Jobs Network. As Raghav said, I'm going to be sharing our work on the Shakti scheme that Uma ma'am talked about a few minutes ago in Karnataka. And I'm going to be sharing, what we're doing with them, what we found, and some very exciting next steps that we have lined up. So to begin with, I just want to highlight, and I feel like everybody out here, I see a lot of familiar faces. We are very familiar with this, but mobility restrictions impact women in a variety of ways in terms of how they access work opportunities, education opportunities, access to public spaces. And with that in mind, various countries, and in fact various states in India have introduced, schemes to provide subsidized or free bus transport. In different parts of the world, it's been for other reasons, to reduce congestion on roads or to promote sustainability. But in India, we've seen Punjab, Tamil Nadu, and Delhi in the past introduce schemes to provide free bus transport to women, specifically to ease access to job opportunities and education opportunities, and promote safety as well. So most recently, the Shakti Yojana was launched by the government of Karnataka in June 2013, with the objective to improve women's access to better education and employment opportunities by easing mobility-related and transportation-related constraints. In the last 6 months, the scheme has had some pretty impressive numbers. 5.5 million women have used the bus every day. And 1 billion free rides have been availed by women in the last 6 months. And also, the total ticket value that the cost to the state has been 24 billion. What we want to understand with our work on the Shakti Yojana is how do these numbers translate into how women are experiencing the scheme, and what challenges do they still continue to face that policymakers can address in addition to subsidized bus prices or free bus prices. So we have partnered with the Fiscal Policy Institute at the government of Karnataka for a 3-year-long project where we are going to see the Shakti scheme and we're going to see how it unfolds over the next 3 years. We've started our work with a baseline survey, which was done earlier this year in October 2023. And we will be doing a midline survey 1 year from now, and then an endline survey in 2025 to actually understand over the period of 3 years, has the scheme actually been able to improve employment outcomes? Has it been able to promote financial savings? Has it improved access to education opportunities? So what I'll be sharing today is a brief about our baseline survey and what we have found. So, we did this baseline survey about 2 or 3 months after the scheme was introduced. And what we wanted to understand was what was the early impact on commuting decisions that women made? Has it had any impact in this short period of time in the decisions that they're making about their employment choices and employment opportunities? And has it helped promote financial savings? So this survey was conducted across 5 districts in Karnataka. I think the names are kind of small, so you can't see them, but it was in Bengaluru Urban, Chamarajanagar, Udupi, Haveri, and Yadgir. We had a total of 786 survey respondents across all 5 districts, and we also conducted 14 focus group discussions across all 5 districts, and there were about 140 women, so 10 per focus group discussion, that participated in these FGDs. The surveys were conducted with women while they were traveling in buses, while they were waiting at the bus stop for the bus, and the focus group discussions were conducted in partnership with civil society and community-based organizations across all districts. In terms of the demographic profile, 80% of our respondents were under the age of 50. 92% were engaged in some form of income generation activity or the other. Typically, either we were speaking to garment factory workers or domestic workers, vegetable vendors. We had very interesting interactions with women at the fish market in Udupi, and as well as non-government NGO staff, and also some housewives who were not working or had been working in the past but were rethinking their employment decisions or rethinking getting back into the labor market. In terms of caste distribution, nearly 40% of the respondents belong to the OBC category, and nearly 60% of the respondents had 10th grade or above education attainment. I'm going to spend a little more time now talking about what are some of the early results or early impact we've seen of the scheme. So we found that nearly 80% of our survey respondents said that bus was their preferred mode of transportation, though understandably we were surveying women who were traveling in buses. But what we did find in our focus group discussions was that bus was the preferred mode of transportation if the commute to work was longer than, say, 2 or 3 kilometers. So we met with multiple, say, domestic workers who worked at various houses within a 2 or 3 kilometer radius of their house, and they found it easier to walk to work rather than take the bus because that actually took longer. Having to wait for the bus at the bus stop, not being entirely sure about the timings, that had a negative impact on their employment outcomes in the sense we heard from multiple people, if we get late, we get fired. So, it's better for us to leave half an hour early if we are assured of the fact that we'll reach on time. So that was one interesting finding that we found. In terms of monthly savings, the highest savings predictably were reported in Bangalore. This is also because the monthly bus pass prices in Bangalore are over 1,000 rupees. So majority of our respondents responded that they saved about 1,300 rupees per month by utilizing the Shakti scheme while traveling in buses. The second was Haveri, where the savings was about 1,000 rupees per month. Again, we weren't specifically speaking to students, but a lot of our respondents were mothers. And what we heard from them was that more than the savings that they're experiencing for themselves, it's the savings with respect to school or college-going children traveling, because they travel on a daily basis, at least twice a day, round trip. And so the savings for kids in the family traveling was very significant and allowed families to make decisions, like buy books for their children or buy new clothes for them. But that was one thing we heard repeatedly from multiple respondents across all focus group discussions. We also found some unintended consequences, some positive, some negative. One unintended consequence that explicitly is not stated in the scheme, is not something that we were also looking at, but it came out, is the fact that reduced transportation costs actually made it easier for people, especially in rural areas, to access medical care. Because it was typically people would decide to go to a hospital, say if they were in a rural area, to the district headquarters, and they would go alone because that would, if you take a companion with you, it's double the cost that you're incurring. If you have to stay at the hospital, there's costs for that as well. But now, given that women are traveling for free in buses, people don't think twice about taking a companion with them for a medical checkup, however serious or even basic. This woman I quoted out here, she was talking about how there are 5 cancer patients in her village. And now they find it so much, they don't think twice about taking a family member with them for their checkups to go visit the doctor. So in terms of, accessing medical facilities, and we might, something that we're going to look at in our subsequent surveys, if access to other sorts of facilities has also been eased or promoted as a result of this scheme. And the one negative unintended consequence, but I should say that we have seen this in reports from Delhi as well, is that for some reason, after a government introduces free bus transport for women, bus drivers, bus conductors, and other male passengers lose respect for them. And they start treating them rudely, they don't speak to them well, or sometimes they don't stop the bus for them. And that's an interesting behavioral response that one needs to look at, because it's something that women, I would say not just in Karnataka, but in all the studies we've read of Delhi as well, we found it's uniform. So that's a glimpse of our work on the Shakti scheme and the baseline study. I think our takeaways are that there are savings, whether those savings are for yourself or with respect to kids in the family traveling, but there are savings. We haven't as yet seen whether women are making different employment choices, but it's arguably too soon. So we will see what we see over the next 1 to 2 years after the scheme has been in implementation for some time. And then, like I said, it has definitely improved access to facilities. That's it. Stay tuned for more results. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kaushiki Sariyal, and I'm a fellow at Just Jobs Network. So I will be shining a light on how our policy process needs to be more inclusive and how can we mainstream gender in your public policy process. Why is that important? It is important because many of the hidden biases that are there regarding women actually get embedded into the policy most probably at the formulation stage rather than at a much later stage. For example, if you are looking at, say, if you're making a policy on gig workers, rights of gig workers, most probably the specific concerns for women gig workers are not taken into account while the policy is being formulated. Women gig workers need greater flexibility because they have care duties at home. They also have safety issues. And these are very important concerns which may not seems to get overlooked while policy is being formulated because the man is the default person. Now, when we talk about the policy process, there are multiple players in that. As you can see on the screen, a large number of groups like NGOs, civil society organizations, trade unions, corporates, lobbying groups jostle for space to influence policy. There are also, when it comes to actually making policy, it's the state apparatus that comes into play. So you have the legislature, parliament, you have the executive bureaucracy, and you have the judiciary, which comes in at various points in time. Other key players in this process also include the media, who play a very important role of publicizing issues, creating public opinion, actually shaping public opinion. Now, that is given this array of players, a question that comes to mind is, where are the women in this group? As you can see, the less than a third of our MPs, our bureaucrats in the Indian Administrative Services and the judiciary are women. Not only that, some of the reports that I read actually said that many of these women are actually relegated to, I won't say relegated, but they generally seem to get portfolios like culture or something which is seen softer than, say, finance or defense. That's not true currently. Now, why is this a matter of concern? It's a matter of concern because, A, in absolute terms, we don't have enough women in decision-making positions. We need women to break many of the biases that are there about them in the workplace. Without having enough women there, many of the already hidden biases that are there continue to exist, and they don't get broken. Other point is, we need women to have a diverse perspective while policies are being made. And lastly, most policies which are seen as gender neutral use men as the default. Unless there are more women in decision-making positions, their perspectives would not be included while policies are being formulated. And that's the reason we need more women in decision-making positions. So the next question is, what is being done about this? One of the concepts that feminist scholars and activists have been talking about, and this has now become much more prominent, is the concept of gender mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming is basically allowing that the entire policy process needs to be more gender sensitive, needs to, at all levels of the policy making process, gender needs to be front and center. That's the whole idea behind gender mainstreaming. And there are various tools that have been developed by various scholars, which was being mentioned previously also. Tools like gender responsive budgeting, gender impact assessment tools. Various countries are using these. I'll talk a little bit about the gender responsive budgeting. Gender budgets basically are a fiscal innovation that analyzes budgetary policies and identifies the effect it has on gender development. It has been pioneered it was pioneered in Australia, but now a large number of countries have actually adopted it, including many countries in South Asia, and which also includes, of course, India. What has been, how has India progressed on gender budgeting? India has it started the process in 2005, and it started in the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Since then, a number of states have also adopted the process, and these include Karnataka, Kerala, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal. What India does is it produces a gender budget statement which is released along with the union budget and in the state budget. And in the gender budget, there are Part A and Part B. Part A includes all the allocations for all programs that are specifically related to women or targeted at women. And Part B includes allocations for all the programs where at least 30% of the allocation is for women. However, gender budgeting in India also has had many limitations. One of them is that we have weak institutional capacities, and there are not enough mechanisms to do the gender budgeting in a more robust way. The second thing that happens is the preparation of the gender budget statement is actually a exercise which is done ex post, which basically means that after the budget has been, the union budget has been designed, the various ministries actually just say that, okay, these are the schemes that, line items that are related to women, and those are included in the gender budget. So it doesn't really affect the main budget that comes out in February every year. The other problems that are there is that although allocation in absolute terms have increased over the years, but as a proportion to the total budget, it has remained almost constant at 3 to 6%. There is also some lack of clarity on how schemes are included, which schemes are included, why certain schemes are not included, why they are included, also how the 30% allocation to women is calculated. All of these are kind of there's some methodological weaknesses there. More recently, the tools for gender impact assessment have been adopted by various countries. Now, what does that do? It basically systematically analyzes the differential effects of policies, legislations, budgets on women and men. So it basically is a more holistic process. What are the countries who have been working on, who have started adopting this gender impact assessment tool? These are some of the countries. So the one thing about gender impact assessment analysis tool is that it's a way of gender mainstreaming. There is no one specific methodology that is used. Each country has developed its own methodology to do this assessment of at the policy levels. So among the countries that have adopted include Austria, Canada, Sweden, Taiwan, Spain. And all of them have actually gone the route of legislation to embed the gender mainstreaming into their in their policy making process, rather than bringing it in an ex post fashion. They have made it into an ex ante exercise. It's still too early to say how effective they are, but this is a promising direction that the gender mainstreaming has taken. There is no doubt that India would actually benefit from developing and incorporating a tool for gender impact assessment, and it would hopefully make our public policy making process much more gender sensitive. And that's the hope at CGA, at the Center for Gender Analysis, that we would like to develop tools and strategies that, that would help us conduct such impact assessments and eventually design policy instruments that are gender sensitive and contribute to women's economic empowerment. Thank you so much.